Welcome everyone to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 7th of June 2022. Members of the public gallery should note that Council records and publishes Council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate times during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with the Council via the online web form should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors, councillors and those invited online attendees ensure that their mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. And it must be remiss of me, I didn't acknowledge our online councillors. Councillor Rossetti, can you see and hear me?
I can see you and I can hear you, Mayor.
Councillor Ripper, can you see and hear me?
Yes, Mayor, I can see and hear you.
Just to acknowledge the company, if we could all stand. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai-Kurnai people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that true good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. Please sit down. We have one apology, which is Councillor Crosley. Do I have any declarations of conflicts of interest? No. Confirmation of minutes. Could I aim to move the item 3.1, adoption of minutes of the previous council meeting? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of 17 May 2022 and unscheduled council meeting of 19th of May 2022 to hear budget submissions.
Do I have someone to second that? Do I have someone to second that? Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? If not,
Mayor,
Councillor
Mayor,
Ripper.
must I interject?
Go ahead, Councillor Ripper.
I think we may be in a position, Councillor Wood, can she do that? I don't think she was at the budget submission. I may be wrong.
Sure. No, so we'll probably then need Councillor Stevens is happy to move
Thanks,
that.
Councillor Ripper. Councillor Stevens, happy to move that?
Yes.
Councillor Wood, happy to second that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Happy with that, Councillor Wood?
Yes, thank you.
Item 4, business arising from previous meetings. I believe we have none. Item 5, acceptance of late or urgent items. I believe we have none. Item 6, notices of motion. I believe we have none. Item 7, receiving of petitions or joint letters. Before we go into that, I believe there's some members or some residents in the gallery that like to speak to the petition. If you'd like to come forward, just state your name and you have 3 minutes to address the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor By, Deputy Mayor Mackenzie and councillors. My name is John Allman and I'm pleased to once again have an opportunity to speak with you regarding the proposal to build a pump track at Seaspray. As mentioned previously, I'm a permanent resident at Seaspray. I'm now retired, but I've been holidaying in the same house down there for 65 years. Some other ratepayer residents are here with me tonight, and together we probably represent over 200 years of ratepayers' activity down in that township. The fact of the matter is that the proposal for a pump track at Seaspray has been a debacle from the outset.
Excuse me, Mayor. Could he start again?
Just 1 second, John. Sorry, Councillor Ripper.
Now that we can hear, I would ask the petitioner if he wouldn't mind starting again. Thank you.
I apologise, John. We hadn't turned the lectern on. That's my CEO's fault there. I totally take the blame for him. That's okay. If you just start again,
no worries.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Mayor By, Deputy Mayor Mackenzie and councillors, my name's John Allman and I'm pleased to be here once again to have an opportunity to speak with you regarding the proposal to build a pump track at Seaspray. As mentioned previously, at the last time I was here in April, I'm a permanent resident at Seaspray. I've been holidaying in the same house for about 65 years. This afternoon there are several other residents of Seaspray with me, and together we probably represent over 200 years of ratepayer activity in our wonderful town. The fact of the matter is, the proposal to build a pump track at Seaspray has been a real debacle from the outset. As you're no doubt well aware, several councillors and Shire employees were initially told that there was strong community support to build a pump track on the foreshore at Seaspray. This was clearly not true, as there are many aggrieved residents, and there was absolutely no consultation. Nobody was asked about it. When members of the Foreshore Management Committee were asked by me and another person about what was going on and why there was no consultation, the reply was very blunt. These are members of the Foreshore Management Committee, the President and the Vice President. The response was, we on the Foreshore Management Committee don't have to consult with anybody. We don't have to consult with the community. We are responsible to DELF only. After further discussions over a couple of days, a bit of common sense prevailed, and the President of both the Ratepayers Association and the Foreshore Management Committee agreed that together we should approach Wellington Shire to help us undertake a process for community consultation regarding the proposal to build a pump track. It was also agreed that we'd meet the following week so that we could refine details how best to approach Shire, because none of us really knew what the process should be. That planned meeting the following week never went ahead, as both the Foreshore Management Committee President and the Ratepayers Association President refused to meet. Why? I have absolutely no idea. The Ratepayers Association seemed to be an appropriate forum for concerns to be raised at a local level. So this is before the survey and everything. At the following meeting, the President shut down the discussion about the pump track and encouraged people, I was one of them, to attend the forthcoming Foreshore Management Committee. Express your concerns and get a view from them. Go directly to the Foreshore Management Committee. They're responsible for this. But I must be clear about something. The person giving that advice, the President of the Ratepayers Association, is also the Vice President of the Foreshore Management Committee. So they're very intertwined, and I'm not making any judgment about that. We approached the President of the Foreshore Management Committee, informing him of the advice we'd received. That is, go along to the meeting, air your views, get a thing. The request was refused. We were told that we could not attend as it was a closed meeting. No further detail was provided. Of course, such meetings can be closed meetings. I fully understand that. But normally a reason would be given, and I hope you agree with me that that response really raised further concern about transparency and the whole process being undertaken. So what did we do? We registered our concern at the following Ratepayers Association and told them, we refused entry to the meeting. So that was duly noted, and I just wanted to mention it. I didn't want to have a discussion about it. That was duly noted in the minutes. But at the conclusion of that meeting, the Ratepayers Association President unilaterally announced that the Ratepayers Association was now closed, it was going into recess, there'd be no further activity, meetings or anything from the Ratepayers Association until further notification was made. Now, the closing down of the Ratepayers Association, along with the refusal to open the Foreshore Management Committee meetings, elevated our concerns and many others of transparency and overall governance of both the Ratepayers Association and the Foreshore Management Committee. The refusal of the Foreshore Management Committee to allow attendance by community members and the unilateral decision to close down the Ratepayers Association meant that there was absolutely no forum in Seaspray to bring it up at a local level. You've got to wonder, don't you? You know, this just denies every notion of natural justice, transparency and appropriate governance. It was pleasing that that your Shire, Wellington Shire, came to the party and agreed to undertake a survey involving a yes/no vote of ratepayers of the Honeysuckles and Seaspray. And it was also pleasing to hear from your CEO, and he told me this personally, an overwhelming yes vote from ratepayers of Honeysuckles and Seaspray was required for the pump track to go ahead. An overwhelming yes vote from ratepayers was required. Unfortunately, and I won't be much longer, unfortunately, the subsequent actions of the Ratepayers Association president undermined the Wellington Shire survey process. Here's how that happened. The president undermined the council-driven survey process by sending out an email to all, and I'll come to your relationship with them in a minute, and I fully understand it, I've got it in writing from your CEO and others, that the ratepayers, she used the Ratepayers Association mailing list before council had even contacted ratepayers. The communique was nothing more than a promotion for the pump track. Alarmingly, in doing so, the Ratepayer Association president disabled the email list so that we couldn't respond to it and say, oh, wait a minute, what's going on? You know, council haven't even sent us. We had no idea what was going on and couldn't even go back. There are several issues here, and I think you'd agree with me from a governance perspective, and it's absolutely correct. It's not appropriate for an individual or group to be initiating your process without your approval, and I know that your council gave no such approval. I've been told that by several of your senior people here at Wellington Shire. Secondly, it's not appropriate and could in fact be an offence for the president of the Ratepayers Association to use the official email list in this way, especially when the Ratepayers Association is in recess. It's just not on, you don't do it. Thirdly, disabling the email to ensure that there could be no responses, well, that's disturbing to say the least. Furthermore, and I'll finish up in a minute, the Ratepayers Association misrepresented facts. So all this was floating around with no recourse, no meeting to discuss it. You couldn't go back because it was disabled. It stated that the pump track site was yet to be determined. Well, we know, your survey made it clear. We've looked at all these sites and this is where it is. So it was a fib, to put it mildly. The communique highlighted the availability of petitions seeking signatures and thereby elevating the influence of the general public on the decision. This clearly undermined your process. David told me this because you met on the 19th of April this year at your Councillors meeting earlier in the day, and you discussed it and determined very clearly that it was the ratepayers who were going to decide what's happening in our town, nobody else. We had been informed, and this is, you know, the caravan park manager, and I'm not having a go at a wonderful person, but he's encouraging everybody that comes through the gate to sign a petition. Well, if I was calling into Anglesey and somebody said, oh, we're having this great thing built for the kids, do you mind signing it? I'd probably say, oh, you seem nice, I'm staying at your place. You know, so she's doing that. So what's the consequence of that is that many of the locals are saying, what's going on here? Is the council survey just a token gesture for us little ratepayers down here? Everybody and their dog seems to be able to vote. You can go online and vote, you can be a visitor, you can vote in some survey down at the caravan park. Is it really a token gesture? And I kept saying, no, it's not. The Wellington Shire's fair income. They've made it really clear what they're on about. So let's just give them a go. I'm finishing up. On behalf of the group of concerned residents, I urge Council to do one of the following. Accept that the activities of the Foreshore Management Committee and the Ratepayers Association to date have resulted in such contamination of the process that it will be impossible for you to ultimately decide what is in the best interest of our community. And look, it'd be great if together, and there's a lot of active residents down there, and I could say to the Foreshore Management Committee, you've got some money, let's do a blueprint for all the way along the front in full consultation with our community and say, what's the development and what can we add to our wonderful foreshore over the next 10 years? Government grants, state, federal, locally raised money. It'd be terrific. And then we say, as something comes along, oh, we have this on the list, let's get out and talk to the community about it and do it. Not plonk something down in the middle of without any consultation. I'll finish on one point. I've commented a lot today on the actions of the Ratepayers Association. I've commented a lot on the Foreshore Management Committee and how they've conducted themselves. We know, and I've got it in writing, they are not your responsibility and you can't hold them to account, and whatever they do is their business. Now, we fully accept that. I was a bit peeved that you couldn't intervene, but we know that you can't. They're not under your bailiwick. But the proposition we're putting to you is that this whole process, including your survey, has been contaminated to such an extent by their actions. What we're putting to you is the Seaspray community would be best served if you denied approval for this to go ahead. I know from talking to people in Sale, and I was born and bred here, but I know people in the building industry and elsewhere that have said this council prides itself on processes that are transparent and fair. And your CEO and people make that clear for planning, permits and all the rest of it. They want transparency and fairness in the way they conduct themselves. And that's all we've been asking throughout this process. The last thing we need in Seaspray is a permanent structure or monument that's going to reflect or stand there as a reminder of this real division that's happened in our wonderful town. So please consider carefully what I've said, and I'm sure you will, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you, and I'm sorry for going over time.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much. Do you have anyone else that wanted to speak from the gallery? Yep, come forward. Just state your name and you have 3 minutes to address the councillors.
Hi everyone, my name is Philomena Holtforth, or Cashin, sorry. I've got several names. I am a psychologist and my husband, we're both psychologists that work in disabilities in Melbourne. We bought a beautiful place in Seaspray last year. We're not on the foreshore, so I have no vested interest in anything. I'm here just to talk about the beauty of our foreshore, which is pristine and serene. And for somebody who comes back to Seaspray to get their head sorted, it's one of the places that I love to go down there and drive along, and it just automatically relaxes me. But the thing that's really concerning is because I was new, I didn't have any knowledge of this website that's on, or Facebook site called Celebrate Seaspray. I was only told about that from the previous owner, who said, you better get on this site because it's got sort of all the action that's happening at Seaspray. Well, I looked at who was responsible for this site. I couldn't quite work it out. I think it says here, Seaspray Foreshore Redevelopment Committee. When I actually spoke to DELP about this so-called committee, they said, well, that's actually got nothing to do with us. And I said, but isn't that the DELP committee that's supposed to be giving the money to us to do this? And she said, no, that's got nothing to do with us. So who are these people that monitor this Facebook site that block people from having an opinion? I mean, I've put up things like, oh, where are the minutes for the last ratepayers meeting? And that was taken down. So it's a very, very strange process that we are getting our information from. So if I'm trying to understand what's happening here on the foreshore, who's telling me? So you people, and I don't mean to be accusatory, are putting it on this Facebook site that is completely disregarding any sort of equity, honesty, transparency. It's not giving us any appropriate information. Oh, sorry, you guys. You're back there. So the point is that suddenly we're voting on this thing that the idea came from the DELP committee, which I'm not sure what that's called in relation to this particular committee that's supposed to be running the Facebook page. So they came up with the idea. That's where the seed of the idea supposedly came from. But when I spoke to Liam Coles, he said, oh, we investigated a couple of years ago and there was absolutely no justification for having a pump track in Seaspray. None. The community doesn't support it in terms of age, demographics. There are no kids there except during the holidays. And interestingly enough, the DELP committee also run the caravan park, and I'm not making any accusations at all, but it's a funny thing, isn't it, that the caravan park will benefit. Probably the only people that will use the pump track are going to be from the caravan park. There might be a few locals and that's great, but in general, it is the incomers that will be using that pump track, that asphalt pump track. So then I went to your page, you people, you've written this or you've agreed to it, and it talks about the objectives of the community engagement strategy. Now, I don't know whether any of you have read that, but it says, strengthen representation in decision making. And I know this could be boring because some of you might know it off by heart. Ensure the community understands how, when and why they can expect council staff to engage with them on issues of importance to them. And then it goes on and on and on. And there's a whole process about community engagement is any process that involves the public in problem solving or decision making and uses public input to make decisions. So where is our public input? We've got this dodgy Facebook page. And let's face it, a whole lot of people who live in Seaspray probably don't even know how to use Facebook, probably don't even have a computer. So why isn't the information, if the council is so determined to do this, why are we not being sent, ratepayers being sent a proper notification about this proposal, a proper consultation process where we can all get together? And as for showing on the Celebrate Seaspray page, a dodgy drawing that says, oh, this is an artist's impression of somewhere else. So how big is this pump track? Can any of you tell me? Can any of you give me the dimensions? Can any of you tell me how high it is? How far it's going to go? So we're supposedly voting, or some of us are voting if we happen to be on the page, be able to get the page, on something that doesn't even exist. It's an artist's impression. So for God's sake, we really need community consultation about this. We need to be able to see, we need a 3D model. We need to know how far it's going to go along the foreshore. I mean, it's ludicrous. I mean, we can't even imagine. I have no spatial ability whatsoever. I look at this thing and it just looks like a wiggly line. So how high is it going to be? What's it going to look like? We probably need a 3D representation from someone. And I think, whether or not in the end people vote for it, I think we need a proper process to get to there. And I think it should be, unfortunately, the council needs to be sending out appropriate correspondence to the ratepayers. They also need to have something real for us to vote on, not some dodgy cartoon drawing. Have you all seen it? Have you all seen the survey? Have you seen it? What did you think of it? You're nodding.
Question and answer.
Sorry. Okay, well, you nodded. Sorry, you responded. Okay, I'm sorry. It's the first time I've done this. Sorry, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone, but I think that really none of you can tell me what the pump track looks like. And I've certainly spoken to Liam Cole and he's said, well, we've got to actually get the designer in to do it. after it's approved. Well, just chicken and the egg. I think we really need to see it first before we can vote on it. And also, I do believe that the local land council people haven't actually been approached yet. It's about this either, which I think is probably pretty important because it's a very pristine, beautiful foreshore. And I'd personally rather see some Indigenous gardens there or something of that nature if we're going to spend $200,000 of taxpayers' money. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Philomena. I'll just make a quick comment just on the pump tracks. When we build a pump track in towns, once it's decided it actually will go ahead, the pump tracks are all the same dimensions. We do go out to the community though and give them options of what sort of track on that same footprint. So if you want to visit any of our pump tracks, you can see the size that we actually take up if a pump track does go ahead. It's just the way the track is actually, I suppose, worked out. We go back to the community with a few different designs and the community then picks which design they would like. But all the pump track dimensions are all identical. So if you want to pop into any of our current pump tracks, you can see.
Except, as I said, I have no spatial ability. I would like to see it on the foreshore and marked out for us.
Look, where the place is, we've got to decide first if we have one, so we'll carry on first. We haven't decided if that is actually happening.
Accepting a petition.
Yeah, we're just accepting the petition today. Yes, legally. So if we want to continue on, is there anyone else that wanted to speak to the item? No?
Sorry, there may have been somebody online, but perhaps that... no?
No, with online we usually log that before the meeting so we can
I
expect someone to come.
That's fine.
Well, we haven't got that, so it mustn't have happened. Yeah, thanks, John. Just before we continue on, we did receive a final late page for the petition containing 12 extra signatures. We've now included those in the minutes that were displayed, so there were 73 signatures, just to be correct there. Could I have someone to move? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council receive the attached petition in relation to the proposed Seaspray pump track and refer the petition to be considered as part of Your Wellington, Your Say Seaspray pump track survey review process. Just as a matter of background, Wellington Shire...
Just a moment, Councillor, can we have it seconded first and vote, then you can do comments afterwards. Councillor Stevens would like to second that. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. And just some further information before I come back to Councillor Wood. We're not going to do further response to the petition. We'll be forthcoming as it will be handled as a part of Your Wellington, Your Say Seaspray pump track survey review process. So the results of that survey will come to the council meeting on the 7th of July and be made public. We have not even seen those results yet as a councillor, so they're going to be hot off the press to us shortly as well, but they will come to the 7th of July for the general public to actually see what the results of that survey is. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, the 5th of July, I've just been corrected. Thank you.
Wellington Shire Council is seeking to understand community support for the construction of the pump track at the foreshore at Seaspray and provided the community with an opportunity to contribute to Your Wellington, Your Say survey, which closed on the 27th of May. The $150,000 asphalt pump track would provide recreational opportunities for a wide range of ages and abilities. For all of the sports like BMX, scooter, skateboard, etc. $100,000 of the project is funded through the federal government's local roads and community infrastructure program and $50,000 contribution by the Seaspray Foreshore Reserve Committee. Construction is planned for the first half of 2023 if the project proceeds. A petition containing 73 signatures has been received in support of the project progressing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Wood.
Mayor, what I'll do...
There was no opportunity to say no.
Today was just receiving a petition, Mayor, but today was just receiving a petition. There's no decision, which we legally have to do. But Chris Hasty, Mayor and Councillors, is happy to explain that process to the people that spoke straight after this. So.
Sorry, can I ask David, So I heard clearly that there are 73 votes of yes from ratepayers in support of the contract.
No, it's a petition that has come to us with 73 signatures on that petition, but that has nothing to do with our survey that we've put out there.
Okay, and all you're doing is acknowledging it exists.
We're just acknowledging.
And it'll be part of your workshop discussion.
Spot on.
Yep. Done.
Yeah, thank you. So if you want to stay for the whole meeting, you can, and grab Chris, or Chris can go out with you now and talk to you guys if you like.
No, that's good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, everyone. Item 8, invite addresses, presentations or acknowledgements. Councillor Ripper, I believe you have one.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll just get this. Thank you, Mayor. Councillors. Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. The present monarch of Australia is Elizabeth II, styled Queen of Australia, who has reigned since the 6th of February. Mayor, I was talking in the background. Who's that coming from?
You won't have that now. We'll just close the doors.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'll start again. Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. The present monarch of Australia is Queen Elizabeth II, styled Queen of Australia, who has reigned since the 6th of February 1952. Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh arrived on a RAF plane at RAF Base East Sale for an official visit to Sale in February 1954. Returned to Melbourne by special royal train. The Mayor of Sale at the time was George Richard Neville Valentine, OBE JP. In the words of Paddington Bear, who was part of Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee celebration, was a guest of the Queen for afternoon tea. Quote, "Happy Jubilee, Ma'am, and thank you for everything," unquote.
Thank you, Councillor Ripper. Well said. Item 9, questions on notice. We have none. Item 10, Delegates Report. Councillor Marr.
I have a Delegates Report. Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I would just like to thank Council for the opportunity that's recently been afforded to me to undertake the Company Directors course that I've attended online over the last 5 weeks. It certainly provided deep insight into board practices and a comprehensive overview of essential duties and responsibilities that I look forward to using in the future, and I can highly recommend that it's certainly a course that all councillors should consider undertaking. In addition to being busy with regard to studying, last Thursday and Friday I also attended the Rural and Regional Planning Conference that was put on by the MAV, and it was the first time since 2019 that they have been able to come together. And fortunately for me, it was also a hybrid conference, so there were a number that attended in person over at Torquay, and I was able to join 25 others and attend on Zoom. So I'll just give you a brief summary of some interesting points that were raised. Firstly, the data guy, that's not his name, but he was affectionately nicknamed that. His name is Simon Krustenmaker, I think that's how you pronounce it, of the Demographics Group. He was a highlight and provided information, particularly the impacts coming out of COVID upon the rural and regional sectors. He covered a many range of things, but highlighted that there are skills shortages that we're currently experiencing, and they won't be going away anytime soon. The housing demand, he has forecast, is here to stay. The metro decline will continue to occur, but regional will grow. This is the time for initiatives, and we need to start thinking as a local government out of the box, which I think we have been doing quite well and can certainly tick that box. Housing affordability is becoming critical, as is the social housing element, and I can assure you that we are not the only area that is experiencing that issue. And he also advised that where possible, when we see empty retail stores, to fill them and activate them with whatever it takes, whether it be art or kids' ball pits, because he sees that that is actually the negative within particularly a strip shopping centre. And he highlighted that sport is the glue that brings us all together, and it allows community from all manner of places to actually connect. And he highly recommended that regional government, local governments start really grabbing onto that where we can possibly do so. So it's great to know that we've got the boxing match that is coming to sale. We also heard from Michael Orford, the Statutory Reform Officer from DELP, who advised of proposed changes to the VPP, which include rural zoning exemptions, particularly around farm zoning, rural activity zones and the rural living zone. Telco facilities, there will be changes around that, as well as land use term changes, which I think that will be an interesting thing as to what they bring forward, because we seem to have that occur every so many years. Minor permit exemptions for homeowners were also another area that they are looking at, particularly with minor building works around their home. Recent changes include emergency recovery that does not include bushfire, as well as wind energy facilities and land use conflicts, extractive industries and land use conflicts, and rural worker accommodation on farm zoning properties, which I think is quite interesting and maybe something that we can look into going forward. Agriculture Victoria also attended and advised that there's certainly been an increase of dwelling applications on farm and rural zones at a rate of 30 to 1, with the one being a genuine application. Guidance material is currently being significantly reviewed, with an increase to protecting rights to farmers and thus reducing conflicts that occur. We also had Dr. Rowan Henry, who spoke to Indigenous engagement and asked that local governments see traditional owners as rights holders as opposed to stakeholders, and to engage early and treat traditional owners as a primary authorising body, as we do other organisations, particularly with DELP and the CMA. As advised at our recent GLAWAC meeting that a number of us attended recently, it was also he also requested that local government be mindful of the resources that are available to those organisations and what cost is required for engagement with them. And he raised the question as to whether local government do they need to create a commercial agreement to facilitate the need, which I thought was an interesting concept. The Insurance Council of Australia also presented with current information and advised that the latest figures that were quite hot off the press with regard to the recent floods that we've seen up in Queensland and New South Wales is greater than $3.35 billion. And there's a loss of, for Northern Australia only, two insurance companies of $856 million. And I think we can all understand that insurance companies' risk appetite is quite low at the moment. At present, they did advise that there is nowhere that is uninsurable at the moment. However, they are mindful that it's becoming more difficult to insure, and of course the price is rising in regard to that, making it unaffordable for many. The majority of their work at the moment regarding climate change is around climate change impacts, actions of the sea and future risks. However, it was interesting to note that most of their targeting is around residential housing and not agricultural and nor business. They're also recommending to government development of a database of current planned and considered coastal protections and adaptation measures to address the actions of the sea. And they're currently in talk with government agencies now. However, they are recommending that going forward with planning that all new developments underpin flood impacts, and that is to new developments. It was also good to see our neighbours, East Gippsland, were there, as well as Greater Bendigo and the Surf Coast, Maddox, VCAT and Heritage Council of Victoria. It was good to hear how other regions are currently dealing with the lack of housing, particularly for key workers. That was particularly insightful, as was the Sustainable Subdivision Framework trials that are currently being undertaken in Bendigo at the moment. We're certainly, what it did highlight is that we're certainly living in a fast changing environment, and it's certainly great to hear and see some of the innovation and collaboration that's currently occurring between local government and stakeholders, and I'll look forward to seeing how it pans out over the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marr, for that update. Item 11.1, Assembly of Councillors. Can I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to move the Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 9th of May 2022 to the 29th of May 2023.
Can I have someone to second that? Councillor Wood. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Mackenzie. Nothing further? Item 11.2, adoption of the 2022 property revaluation. Can I have someone to move that, please?
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to move that Council adopt the following valuation figures as at the return date of 1 January 2022, and that's the table of rateable, non-rateable and total valuation for site, capital improved and net annual value as set out in the agenda.
Can I have someone to second that? Councillor Ripper. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's interesting to note that over the last 3 years, the property market has seen significant growth, and particularly this last year. The valuation changes have been driven by significant increases in the underlying land values across the Shire, and this represents an overall percentage increase of 25.3%, Mayor. The coastal areas have seen the largest increases in capital improved value, with some areas increasing over 50%. And the demand for property in Wellington has been incredibly strong, with a high volume of sales recorded for all types of property. These valuations that we've just approved will be used by Council as part of its 2022-2023 rates program, and valuation notices will shortly be sent to all property owners, Mayor. And of course, as per previous years, this the valuations, of course, have been returned by the Valuer General, and people can question their individual valuation, but it's appropriate to do so by following the link on the Valuer General's Rating Valuation Objection Portal. And that's also available to be accessed through the Council website in the Rates and Valuations section and under Property Valuations. So it's important to realise that whilst the Council uses these valuations, Mayor, we are not responsible for their return. But I encourage any or every ratepayer to look closely at the valuation notice and determine their views on whether they feel that it is what I suppose correct and true representation of what the value of the property would have been at the 1st of January this year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Item 11.3, adoption of the 2022-2023 budget, proposed rates, fees and charges. Can I have someone to move that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Stevens.
I'll have another go. So I'd now like to move that Council 1 adopt the 2022-23 budget as attached, including the 2022-23 fees and charges, the 2022-23 Capital Works Program, in accordance with Section 96 of the Local Government Act 2020, and 2, Council adopts the following declared rates and charges for the period commencing on the 1st of July 2022 and concluding on the 30th of June 2023, and that's paragraphs A through H as set out in the Council papers. Thank you, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? Councillor Ripper, are you opposing that, or just no, you're not, you're just sitting back down? Just to double check. You're on mute, Councillor Ripper.
Yep. Mayor, I'm not opposed. I apologise for my notes going the wrong way.
If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. The 2022-23 budget supports the key strategic objectives of the Council Plan 2021-25, which, for your information, includes major items of environment, climate change, economy and sustainable growth, livability and wellbeing, and services and infrastructure. And this budget will also support businesses and locals as we recover and emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Council's worked very hard to continue to find cost savings within our operations, which are reflected in this budget. It's very interesting to note, Mayor, that our capital works expenditure for this next financial year will total $43.6 million. That's $24 million from council operations, $19.1 million from external grants and contributions, and $0.5 million from new borrowings. Council will also, in this budget, undertake many exciting projects. I'm particularly excited about the continuation of the extension of the Great Southern Rail Trail between Welshpool and Alberton. That has started, but this is a multi-year project and hopefully we'll see major advances in the next financial year. We have also a major redevelopment proposed for Aqua Energy, which is now budgeted to be in the order of about, I was going to say 17 million, but that's not correct, Mayor. It's now 18.5 million. I think it's the latest estimate. We have drainage in sale. We have the Sal-Toongabbie Road reconstruction and widening. And I should particularly note that and thank the council staff for the work that they did in applying for federal funding. And it's very exciting. I hope that's actually been announced publicly, and I can say if I have
bad luck.
Too late now. Let the cat out of the bag there. We have got $2.5 million, I think, is the figure I remember, if I'm correct. Yes, from the federal government for that project. So that's great effort by the Built Environment team. So well done, Mr. Hasty and your team for that. We also have got a youth play precinct in Stratford and a MAFRA resource recovery facility transfer station. We will spend a further $7.5 million in rural areas on our regular maintenance programs, including road soil vegetation, another $9.1 million on maintaining our infrastructure and open spaces. So that we will continue to have a comprehensive result that is of great benefit to our community, Mayor, and that means that we are contributing as much money as we possibly can to a range of capital works projects and to other just general operations. So I would just like to thank you, Mr. CEO, and the staff for the work they have done, because this is a major piece of work each year. And thank you to General Manager of Corporate Services, Mr. Skipataras, for the work done by his staff, because we are turning over in excess of $100 million a year in our total budget, Mr. Mayor, and that makes the Wellington Shire a very big business in the Wellington Shire. Thank you.
Well said. I'll invite any other councillors that'd like to comment on the budget. Councillor Marr.
I'd just like to say that I feel that it's a great budget, particularly that climate change has been addressed within it. And I'll just raise a couple of, go over a couple of points. One is the Leave Early Access Road Network that is in the budget, and there's $90,000 allocated to that. And that is largely around management of vegetation that allows access during bushfire risk periods and allowing access for the residents and those needing to use those roads for exit and egress. And that is certainly something that a lot of people over the years have actually asked for, and I can certainly say that council has listened and this program is continuing. The other one is the electric vehicle charging points that are continuing throughout the Shire. I know that there are many people that are now taking up the use of electric vehicles, and coming from the city, I've heard conversations about the need to plan where they can go and where they can charge. And I certainly, as an Airbnb operator, have had a number of those requests. So it's actually quite nice to be able to say to these inquirers that the Wellington Shire does have points, and that there are some new points in Yarram itself, and that these points will be growing throughout the Shire. And the other point to make mention is that we're continuing to purchase part of our energy needs through the Victorian Energy Collaboration, and that will be offsetting approximately 1,300 tonnes of carbon annually. And I know that that is something that my children are very happy to hear, as well as those that are really wanting council to do something responsibly in this space. So well done and thank you.
Any other councillors like to say anything? No, look, I'd like to congratulate the team again. We had the state government rate capping. We are limited to the amount that we can put our rates up by each year. It is not a bucket load of money that we have that we can just play around with. It is a $100 million budget, but we do it very carefully. And we have to be mindful of what we do with it, with the money that is there for running the Wellington Shire. So I congratulate the team again. It's a great effort to put together a budget. It is tight, as I say. It is unfortunate that the Gippsland Times often report that we have a surplus every year. It is not the case. We don't budget for a surplus. It's just the varying amounts that we get in grants from the state government. It does sometimes hang over. We don't deliver projects on time, and unfortunately with accounting principles, we do show a surplus. There is no surplus. So it is hard to balance the books, and we do a great job with our team. So congratulations again to the team and the CEO for delivering another great budget. Item 11.4, approval for updated instruments of delegation. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Tatterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the attached updated S6 and S18 instrument of delegation, revoke the previous instruments of delegations made, and authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the attached instrument of delegation.
And do I have someone to second that? Councillor Wood. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Tatterson.
No, very procedural, so thank you.
Thank you. Item 12.1, Place Names Committee Minutes. Can I have someone to move that?
Yes, Mayor, I'm happy to
Councillor
move
Rossetti.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move that one, Council receive and note the minutes of the Place Names Committee meeting held on 10th of May 2022, and two, the name rule in recognition of the rural family as early settlers of Stratford and their services to the community be added to the council-approved name register and be available for use when appropriate, subject to compliance with duplicate name rule. And three, the section of Gordon Street north of George Street in Hayfield be renamed as an extension of George Street, and to advertise this intention. If no objections are received within 30 days, the name be registered with Geographic Names Victoria. And
seconded by Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for supporting that motion. Those who've been in and around Stratford will understand the rural family and their significance around the area. And indeed, the famous son of that family, or grandson, and etc., is often seen writing in the major Victorian papers or major Australian papers, Andrew. But the service to the community of that family in all sorts of areas is noted, indeed, even in the minutes. And the third section of that motion about renaming the section of Gordon Street, those who have driven around that street will understand that it makes sense that the last little bit of it where the CFA shed is, that's currently named Mary Street, makes much more sense to have it to have an extension that bit named. The only property that needs to change the number is the CFA shed, and they're very comfortable with the change that's proposed here. But if there are any in the public any people who are interested who think that name shouldn't be changed, well, clearly here we're looking for those who may indeed have a different view to make contact with us in the next 30 days.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. Further gallery and online comments. There's no one in the gallery. Mr. CEO, online comments?
Yes, we do have two, Mayor and Councillors. First one is from an Alison Yanez. Alison's inquiring about the Port of Sale Master Plan and the museum. We've actually already responded to Alison, Mayor, and provided that information, which she is happy with, and a copy of that response has been sent to councillors. So that one's actually been ticked off. We've also received one from Mr. Nicholas Innes, who's questioning a Skill Street, why it doesn't have a footpath on it. So we will respond to Mr. Innes, Mayor, and provide councillors with a copy of that response.
Thanks, CEO. We need to move into closed session. Can I have someone to do that, please?
Yes, Mayor, I'm happy to do that. I move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to Section 662 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider matters under Section 665B as defined by Section 3.1 being F, personal information being information which, if released, would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs.
And can I have someone to second that? Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried.